First rip of 2023. I'm energized right now. Finally back in Austin. Started the morning off right. Nice Friday morning walk around the river here in Austin with the family. Got the synapses firing in the brain. It's going to be a good year, Matt.
Good morning, all. Happy New Year. It's been 51 days, and Barry Silbert still owes Gemini users $900 million.
Big topic of the week.
It's funny how, I don't know. I mean, it's been so obvious to us, and all the freaks have obviously heard us talk about it incessantly for, I think I had a tweet November 17th or whatever, DCG's absolutely fucked, and
Yes.
the
Nobody wants to
market.
recognize it.
Yeah, I was like, the market is still in denial. And so many people gave me shit over that tweet. I mean, Mike Alfred, fucking was just, he defending DCG, saying there's no shot that DCG is in trouble, called me like a child. He's going to delete his tweets and shit. And meanwhile, we're, almost 2 months later, and people are still in denial. It takes so long. It's interesting how long all this stuff usually takes, right? The SBF situation was so quick for failure. He didn't extend it and close withdrawals and extend it and make everything Barry's gonna make this drag out for so fucking long.
Yeah, as long as possible. But it seems like, big topics of the week pertain to DCG and their sub companies. Genesis laying off 30% of their workforce and working with Moelis, which is an investment bank or a private equity firm, one of the two, to figure out how to get out of this mess. And for Genesis particularly, Chapter 11 seems to be on the table, filing for bankruptcy. And then they shut down their wealth management.
But did they even shut down the wealth management division, or did they just lose everybody's money?
I don't know.
Does that count as shutting it down?
I don't know. Did you read the whole information article? I didn't have access
No, it
to
was
it.
paywalled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Presumably they lost a shit ton of money in the wealth management division, and then whatever money they had left, imagine just keeping it with them while all this shit's going down. That's ridiculous. They owe billions of dollars to people. Supposedly the wealth management division was at $3.5 billion assets under management at the peak. People, we talk a lot about crypto VCs. DCG was one of the original crypto VCs. They were doing all this reckless shit with the GBTC trade as well, which, not only do they own a lot of GBTC, but their counterparties own a lot of GBTC and were loaning against it with leverage. So, can you imagine if there was any money left over in the wealth management division, those people were just pulling it right away. So for them to, oh, we're closing it down. I don't think they had already fucked it. It was all fucked.
yeah. Their wealth management division was called HQ Digital. It flew under the radar for quite a bit, but yeah, let's expand on this topic after Clark's dashboard, because I feel like this is going to take an hour.
But the important thing is, good morning and happy New Year, freaks.
Yes, happy New Year.
2023 we're gonna crush 2023 together. It's gonna be probably a long drawn out bear market, but us and all the ride or dies will ride it out together. It'll be fun.
We're not going anywhere. My resolve has been hardened. We've been vindicated. We've been validated. Why wouldn't we double down, even if it is a bear market? If we do go through an extended bear market in 2023, good. You get the stack sats cheaper. And everybody's afraid.
Well, and a recession.
And a recession, too. The jobs report.
Maybe a depression. I was thinking in 30 years, I wonder if our kids are going to look back and they're going to be like, what was the Great Depression of 2022 or 2020? Are we in 1929? Are we?
I saw that tweet that you posted, the Dow Jones performance over
just
29 to 33.
the curse chart of
Yeah.
1929 to like 1933.
Yeah, the
Fucking curse chart.
a lot of bull fake outs there on the way down.
I mean, as a Bitcoiner, the chart doesn't look that bad, right? We've seen worse.
Yes.
But for the average person, I mean, that chart is fucking cursed.
Yeah, Logan, go on Matt's Twitter page and find that chart.
If you just do from at Odell brutal, because that was the caption I used.
Not that one. It's not that one. Down further. There it is. For you freaks who are listening at home and don't have the video in front of you, we're looking at a chart of the Dow Jones Industrial Average between 1929 and 1934.
Mandibles.
It's pretty brutal. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 periods.
Dead cat bounces.
Of multi-month declines.
Well, they have, like, what is it? The first one is like the worst fake out. 70 days of down, and then there was 154 days of up, where everyone was like, "Oh, we made it out, we're good." And there was 3 more years of down after that.
Pump fake. Could be the market we're in right now. Jobs report came out yesterday. I was just listening to No Agenda on the way in. They were talking about this, but it's hilarious. The jobs report was good. There's more jobs that were filled in the U.S. economy, and all the pundits were freaking out because it's not what the Fed wants. They want to see job destruction, demand destruction. You destroy demand by taking people's incomes away so they can't pay for anything. But they also brought up another good point, which is the way unemployment metrics are measured doesn't take into effect the participation rate, the people that have decided to actually leave the job force and don't even get counted in the unemployment numbers.
Yes, it's all bullshit narrative games.
Yeah.
We have a comment from a freak in the chat that hits near and dear to my heart. Jay Pleb saying the Dow is a useless chart because it only includes 30 companies. The reason it hits near and dear to my heart is because I couldn't agree with you more, particularly with today's market. That's one of the reasons I like the S&P 500 for tracking, because it's 500 companies. That being said, I think it's probably more relevant for the 1929 period. Not many of those companies survived in general that existed back then. Also, I didn't make the chart. I saw the chart. I was like, well, that's brutal. And I posted it. So if someone wants to make one, did they have the S&P 500 back then? I don't know. If someone wants to make one with a greater swath of companies and put the nice little time scales on it, I'll happily click retweet.
Yeah, I don't know when the S&P started. Standard & Poor's, let's see.
But it is ridiculous that people still use the Dow Jones when it's only 30 companies. It's ridiculous. It's just such a microcosm of the market. It's not really, like, my dad is obsessed with the Dow Jones as an indicator.
Yeah, the S&P didn't come to be until 1957.
There you go. No one's getting a retweet because it didn't exist.
Maybe you can do a chart of the S&P through the 70s and 80s.
My dad's been crushing it with Exxon.
Big Exxon bull, Matt.
Yeah.
Matt is shilling.
There's like 3 freaks that just, like, every time Exxon has like a good day, I just get tagged on Twitter. Like, Matt's dad is happy today.
Speaking of good days, it's a good day. These blocks are being produced peer-to-peer. Censorship-resistant transactions are being confirmed. Bitcoin is chugging along, and the price is currently 6,806 cuckbucks. One cuckbuck's going to get you 5,950 sats. We are currently at block height 770,668. We are officially, let me do this right, 7,109 blocks away from probably the most beautiful palindrome block we're going to get this year, which is 770,777. So be aware.
Are you a big palindrome guy on on your odometer on your car?
Uh, yes. When I do pay attention to it, I try to find one. I found
My
boobs on my car once, and I took a picture of it.
my lady's like a massive palindrome odometer bull.
Yeah, pounders are fun.
We hit a couple on the drive back to Nashville this week.
Yeah, I think one of the proudest moments of my life is when I got 80,085 miles. I got boobs, or 8,000. Is it 80,085? Yeah, 80,085.
Yeah, the boobs. We got 8. Yeah.
Yeah, 80085. Yeah, 80,000.
Not a palindrome.
No, but just funny
Boobs.
for the immature. Remember that? What was that calculator game you used to play? Like add this, turn it upside down.
Yeah, there was like a whole riddle, and then you got boobs.
Yeah. No boobs on the Bitcoin blockchain, or it's quite a while ago. We had a difficulty adjustment. The difficulty adjustment happened on Sunday between two RHRs. That was a negative 3.6 adjustment. And this was interesting because if you freaks remember, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the Arctic blast and the fact that hash rate was affected by that, particularly by miners engaged in demand response programs here throughout the United States. As temperatures dropped, people weren't in their houses, turned on all their electricity, demand for electricity went up, Bitcoin miners turned off. At the peak of the Arctic blast, the estimated difficulty adjustment was 11.6%, I believe. And so obviously the Arctic blast came and went, temperatures went back up, electricity demand went back down, miners plugged back in or turned their machines back on. And so that difficulty adjustment did not happen to be 11.6%. It came in at 3.6%, which is an incredible testament to the service that Bitcoin miners can provide grids due to the fact that they are interruptible load. You can interrupt Bitcoin miners and not disrupt the Bitcoin network. It's a beautiful thing. We are currently 1,459 blocks away from the next adjustment, and this is looking like a big one as of right now. About 600 blocks into this difficulty epoch, it's looking like, as of right now, the next adjustment will be 11% upwards adjustment. Blocks have been coming in at 9 minutes and 3 seconds on average. Mempool, empty. A lot of hash out there. 693 transactions in Clark's mempool. Not an all-time high this week, but still relatively elevated. Samurai's Whirlpool has 6,638 on the dot Bitcoin in unspent capacity. That's 111.6 million cup bucks in unspent value. So Bitcoin, Arctic blast, chaos in the crypto industry, still hovering around $16,800. We've been ranging pretty tightly in this.
Volatility is coming, Marty. My favorite prediction.
Up or
down hard.
Which way are we going?
I don't know, probably down. Fuck it. But volatility is coming.
Yeah, I would guess down.
Doesn't really change my strategy at all, but
yeah, so let's jump into it. Let's go back to DCG.
Just stay humble, stack sats, but
Genesis laid off.
Bitcoin's been holding up pretty well.
Very well. If you look at relative returns across all markets, Bitcoin is leading markets over the last month and a half, I believe.
I just think like the recession in general, well, first of all, I don't think DCG is properly priced in, and like all their counterparties. I mean, they have a shit ton of counterparties, but also, I mean, I don't think the recession's priced in yet. I think we're like slow rolling into this recession depression, and like people are still in denial.
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah, I saw an interesting web page yesterday. There's a team of people who are documenting the layoffs in the tech sector, particularly, which drove a lot of the returns in the 2021 bull market, 2021 bull market, and tech layoffs are beginning to accelerate.
Yeah, a lot of my friends, like my peers from like college and high school and stuff, still have their jobs. So
you're saying they're not going to have their jobs?
I mean, I just feel like it'll be more common that people will be unemployed.
Yeah.
It's what happens during recessions.
Yeah.
Like I even asked, I was like asking during Christmas because we saw a lot of our friends and family and stuff. I was like, have you had, major layoffs at your companies yet? They're like, no, 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 everything's great. I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah, I thought I shared that tweet in our 1031 group, but it's not there. Did not share it. But yeah, that's an interesting page. Let me see if I can find it real quick. You ramble here. Let's talk about DCG. Break it down for the freaks.
But I mean, before I talked about DCG, I got gas at under $3 a gallon on the way back down to Nashville, and I just wanted to stack as much gasoline as possible. But there's no easy way to secure it. So instead, I'm going to stack sats instead and use those sats to buy gas in the futures is my strategy.
Yeah, it has been really good to be back in Texas and to see gas below $3.
Like I think gasoline is gonna that's gonna go up significantly, right? I
I
think
mean,
energy costs in general.
well, that's the interesting thing. Natural gas is back below $4 here in the States. I believe it hit a peak of like $10 last year. So I think Griffin Habe actually had a good tweet about this yesterday, and tied Bitcoin mining into it. But from what the oil and gas,
I saw that tweet. That was interesting about the ONG industry finally coming into mining hard. It's like all this, the situation is like perfectly set up for it.
yeah, I'll share that tweet.
But that's different than gasoline in your car.
Yes. So yeah,
And like
but
the
you said it,
SPR, like our strategic reserves are just fucking.
depleted.
It looks like a shitcoin chart.
Yeah.
You're just. I don't know if the freaks realize, because I mean I didn't know this until this year when, uh, our government started drawing on the reserves really hard. Those reserves are just like we have like salt caverns just like filled with extra petroleum in like what like Texas and Louisiana and stuff. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That like we don't like put it like we like actually like put it in caves.
Yeah, you got to protect it. The strategic petroleum reserve has to be a reserve that is protected.
Yeah.
And we should note that the SPR was created in the first place to provide an abundance or a reserve supply of oil in war times. The fact that it has been depleted over the last 2 years is, I think, criminal and against the the intention of the SPR in the first place. But gotta try to appease the voters during midterm election years, and that's, I think, the move with the SPR was purely political. Had nothing to do with the mandate of what the SPR
Get gas
exists for.
prices down before elections.
Yeah, exactly. So we put up Griffin's tweet here. What is the perfect storm for oil and gas industry to start mining Bitcoin? Low supply oil, higher prices, increased cash flow for the producers. High supply gas, lower prices, decreased marketability. Dirt cheap ASICs, fractions of former CapEx hurdle, is 2023 the year, I do believe. If it is a good year to transition into Bitcoin mining, if you're an oil and gas producer. But the reason I brought this up, because you said energy prices are going to go up. But yeah, I think there will be some disconnection in the particular energy sources that go up in price. And there's a lot of gas out there right now.
Right. So like nat gas for homes, that probably won't.
Yeah.
Too much.
Yeah. Hopefully that stays low.
Well, I mean, I'm also thinking like I still think there's going to be like massive or continue to be massive inflation.
Yeah, I think.
So if we're pricing it in dollars, like sky's the limit.
Well, that's the big debate going on in macro circles right now. Has secular inflation arrived, or is this a temporary? Is what we've seen over the last year. It's been a temporary rise. Fed policy driving interest rates up, destroying demand. Is that going to quell inflation for a period of time before the Fed is like, all right, we did our job. We can reverse our policy and begin lowering rates again and printing money. And then at that point, does inflation rip? So are we in this like lull period right now?
I saw a lot of tweets this week that was like, damn, the Fed might actually pull off this soft landing with like lots and lots of engagement on it. So um, people actually believe, people are actually, smoking the hopium. We'll see.
Yeah, a lot of hopium out there. That's the other thing too. If like, is the government gonna get tax grabby? Because
Yes.
going into 2024, because
Always
ta-
has been, Marty.
tax receipts are going to be significantly below where they were last year. Does the government react by raising taxes heading into 2024? Who knows?
Freak.
We have this stalemate in the House of Representatives right now. You've been following that at all?
Oh, I mean, I know that they didn't pick a Speaker of the House.
Yeah, apparently they can't get anything done until they pick a Speaker of the House. So hopefully this just keeps going on for as long as possible.
Hopefully, they just never pick a Speaker.
It would be incredible.
Pro stalemate.
I am very pro stalemate.
The government's so useless. It would just be better if they just did absolutely fuck all
Yeah,
forever.
yeah. Shut it down. Shut it down. I'm for the stalemate. Pro stalemate.
I guess should we come back to DCG?
Yeah, because there's a lot to talk about here.
I mean, look, DCG. Barry had every card. All the cards were stacked in his favor. He was the only Bitcoin conglomerate. Period. You know, like he was really the one of the first and largest players in the space. Period. He had GBTC, which just straight up mints money because they have a 2% management fee, which is unheard of for these exchange traded products. He had all of his shitcoin trusts that also had 2% management fees. ETH, uh, ETH Classic, I don't know, like a lot of garbage ones, like just really, but they're all were minting 2% management fees. Literally, all he had to do was just sit on his hands and just ride it to the bank forever, right? And just mint money. And they got super fucking greedy. They got used to, I talked about this in that piece I wrote back in November, Survival. They got used to cheap capital from external capital markets outside of Bitcoin. They could just lend money and raise money at will whenever bear markets happen, whenever they got caught up in shit. All of a sudden, the cheap money disappears. They were extremely reckless in this last cycle. Three Arrows Capital, they were lending to, blew up. FTX and Alameda were counterparties. They were neck deep in the Luna bullshit.
Did they have
And it was
exposure to
all just
Celsius?
probably, like all these counterparties were all just intermixed with each other, and they were just trying to drive up the assets under management of GBTC so that they can also get increased management fees on that. And it all caught up to them. And we talk about how this is a movement of personal responsibility. 2 months ago, when all this started to become really apparent, there could have been some ways to mitigate to mitigate the damage to their customers, to their clients, to the space at large. Barry could have taken personal responsibility for his actions. He could have tried to do a Reg M redemption where people get Bitcoin back for their GBTC instead of selling it on market or selling Grayscale altogether. And he decided to not take personal responsibility. He decided to play fucking games, stall for time, continue to try and raise money when no one in their right mind is going to give him money, because that'd be fucking stupid, especially in this environment when you can just get 5% on fucking T-bills. And now he has Cameron Winklevoss, who, by the way, his first releases a public letter about how Barry is fucking Gemini and fucking their users. Did you read the first line in the letter? It reads like one of my tweets. It has been 47 days.
Yes.
It has been 47 days since Genesis froze withdrawals. I don't think the Winklevoss are exempt from criticism here. Ultimately, they were supposed to be.
Yeah,
They have all their.
they took
Yeah,
on a shit ton of counterparty risk with Genesis.
yeah, and all their terms of service technically probably protects them. Some people are arguing this was a security. Once again, I don't really think that anyone should be asking for securities regulation and whatnot. Like, I think that's all just status bullshit. But their terms of service pretty much protects them. It says like you have to do your own due diligence, like it's with counterparties or whatever. But at the same time, like this was their main counterparty, Genesis, and users did to a degree expect Gemini to be doing some fraud and due diligence expectations and risk management with their counterparties. Gemini went out there and they were like, crypto needs rules. They put it on all the buses in New York. They were fully BitLicense regulated. They said they were the regulated crypto exchange. They were the most trusted entity in quote unquote crypto. And I think it's a great fucking example of how the issue here is just human greed in free markets, free global markets. Like humans will always be greedy. The issue is not lack of regulation. Gemini is one of the most regulated exchanges in the world. They marketed to users as the most regulated exchange in the world. DCG is one of the most regulated Bitcoin companies in the world. They're neck deep with Larry Summers and like all of the bigwig finance bullshit regulator turnstile people that are all like going between lobbying and regulating and all this shit, fully regulated. And meanwhile, they rugged everybody. If anything, regulators here also should have some of the blame because they almost put they essentially put an endorsement on Gemini, right? People were looking at it, they're like, oh, Binance is unregulated, but Gemini is fully regulated. It's the regulated crypto exchange. Like they have the BitLicense, they have all this oversight, blah blah blah, and people felt probably more comfortable. They shouldn't have, but people felt more comfortable going to Gemini and then going to Genesis through Gemini Earn. Like it's the whole thing's fucked. Everyone is culpable. Barry is the most culpable, and he should have known better. And it's just a real shame. It's just a real shame seeing people lose money. I have a friend who was on Gemini, which by the way, I told him at a wedding in September, I was like, get your fucking coin off of Gemini. I was like, I don't care what hardware, buy this hardware wallet, buy that. I'll set it up for you, whatever. He never did it. Turns out he was on Gemini Earn. He got rugged. And I said to him, I was like, well, why did you do Gemini Earn? He's like, I got an email that said, why just hold your Bitcoin in the regular wallet when you can get, 5% by switching over to Gemini Earn? He was like, well, that seems obvious. Of course I'm going to fucking do that. So a lot of people responsible here, a lot of bullshit played. And, I really don't. People are asking me, what's going to happen to Gemini users? My guess is if they get any money, it's going to be pennies on the dollar. If they do get anything, and it's going to take a long, long time, it's going to be a massive bankruptcy process. I think Barry's kind of hoping that there'll just be a bull candle and like the Bitcoin market will turn around and try and save him from this shit, or the Fed will pivot and it'll get cheaper access to capital. But Gemini users probably won't see much money, if anything at all. It's going to take a while. What's going to happen to GBTC users? GBTC holders, no one fucking knows. The question is, how does Barry decide that he wants to try and salvage this situation or try and reduce impact on his own wallet? And there's a couple different ways he can go with that. He can convert GBTC to par, where the Bitcoin gets sold and then everyone gets dollars. That would have massive market impact because all that Bitcoin would get sold on the market. So you take a haircut there. He can sell Grayscale altogether to someone who can actually manage it with responsible risk management. That might be a better case for some GBTC holders, or he can do a Reg M redemption and apply for that and pay people out in Bitcoin. He also, the TCG owns a shit ton of GBTC themselves. He can market dump his GBTC, which would just make the discount go down even further and hurt GBTC. So, if you own GBTC, Barry's got you by the balls, and no one really knows how that plays out. It depends on how he wants to play it.
Yeah, it's the newsletter I wrote last night was the carnage is not over yet. I mean, this DCG, Genesis, Gemini. We'll talk about Silverbank in a little bit, like this whole
Silvergate,
the bank Silvergate. It's all fucked. But for any of you who are new here, like what does Gemini earn? How does it have to do with Genesis? The mechanics of Gemini earn, where they had a deal with Genesis, and Genesis is a trading group that provides liquidity to people who are looking to get Bitcoin, typically to trade on leverage. And so they want to increase their liquidity pool. They partner with Gemini and say, hey, if you can convince your users to use this earn product, you give us the Bitcoin. We'll lend it out at an interest rate, 8, 9, 10%, whatever. And then we'll get those interest payments back and we'll funnel that back to your users. And that's how they were
And
getting.
Gemini. And Gemini gets a cut too.
Yeah, Gemini gets a cut in there. So that's how the users were getting the quote unquote 5% in the earn product. And when you do that, Gemini should have done more due diligence on Genesis's risk management processes and who they were lending money out to. Genesis took Gemini users' Bitcoin and lent it out to these traders, Alameda, people who were trading Lunaterra, Three Arrows Capital. They went and did all these leveraged trades and those trades wound up going against them. And so the Bitcoin that they were trading with wound up going to the book that they were trading on, and it's not theirs anymore.
We talked about this during the Three Arrows collapse because there's a lot of there's a lot of similarities to me as the securities offerings that were done in 2008, where they like combined a bunch of bad loans and then they said, oh, this is AAA. Because with Three Arrows, we saw the same thing. This idea that people said, oh, well, we wanted to get yield, quote unquote yield. We wanted to get interest return. So we only wanted to use responsible, respected counterparties. So then they would loan to Three Arrows Capital because, oh, Three Arrows is like one of the most, responsible entities in the space. That'll be fine. But then Three Arrows went and then their counterparties were ridiculously reckless or whatever. So like they kind of like laundered the counterparty risk. And that's what we see with Genesis as well, where Gemini goes, oh, like we could get yield from all these different sources, but we don't want to do that. We're going to get you a little bit lower yield than our competitors, a lower interest rate than our competitors, but we're only going to lend your money to Genesis, the most regulated, responsible, risk averse entity in the space that's doing loans. And then Genesis goes straight degen on their side. Right. So on their side, they're just getting fully mixed up in counterparty risk using, lending money to all these degen traders. They're taking fucking Terra stable coins for their loans and shit. Just complete degen bullshit. And meanwhile, Gemini can wash their hands and be like, oh no, we're only lending to Genesis. They're responsible. They're regulated. Everything's good. This is the safest place for you to grow your stack, or however their fucking narrative was over there on the messaging side.
Yeah. And so coming back to the earn product and Cameron Winklevoss's letter, I mean, this is why I tweeted it out last night. I tweeted like, was the yield worth it? Anon ? Because there was in the letter, Cameron. So the numbers are there's 340,000 earn users who don't have access to $900 million worth of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So that's more than a third of a million people.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people. And there was people
also the 900 million, like, are they owed interest on the 900 million too? Because it's been 51 days.
I think they'll take whatever they can get. Like you said, I mean, the history of
it should be like $1 billion now if you include the interest.
Yeah, if the interest, if the history of this industry has taught us anything, it's that earn users, I'm sorry, but you're most likely not going to get your Bitcoin back. And like Matt said, if you do, you're going to get pennies on the dollar. You're not going to be made whole.
By the way, like we keep talking about the Gemini users because I think it's just a really important case study, because Gemini once again pretended that they were like this regulated, safe place to go. Everyone knows who the Winklevoss are. They've been faces of Bitcoin for a long time. And there's 340,000 users that have been rugged by this. So it's a very clear, obvious pain point that we keep highlighting. But it's important to realize that DCG and Genesis owe over $2 billion to many, many counterparties. There's other smaller exchanges that use Genesis. It's just littered throughout the world, there's DCG counterparties that they owe money to. That 900 million owed to Gemini users is one small subset that's less than half of the total money they owe.
Yeah, that's why the carnage is not over. I mean, Gemini is probably the largest counterparty, but there are significantly more counterparties connected to Genesis, particularly. I mean, like Matt said, they were held up and vaunted as this gold standard in the industry in terms of a trading desk, and a lot of people didn't do proper due diligence on Genesis risk management systems and just trusted them with their Bitcoin. And yeah, I mean, if you recall, I guess it was a month or two ago now, they tried to raise that $1 billion note in the span of like 3 days. I don't think they successfully raised that. And so
that was like early November. That was when I said they were completely fucked and the market isn't aware.
Yeah,
their deck was literally like, if we fail, this was the hubris they had. This was the lack of humility. Their deck was essentially, if we fail, we take you all down with us. Like, who the fuck do they think they are? They think they do not take us all down with us. Maybe short term it hurts, but let them fucking fail. Weed out the garbage.
The rot. Get it out. Hit it out. That's the thing. Like, once this carnage is over, what's going to be left standing are the companies, and obviously we're partial to Bitcoin only companies who exhibited good risk management, focus, patience, and actually built products and tools that provide Bitcoiners utility and value at the end of the day. And once this whole shitstorm's over, I think what we'll find is those companies that had that mindset and that strategy, that business strategy, will prove to be the quote unquote blue chips of the industry that people come to trust. But yeah, I mean, what we're experiencing now, like Matt, you mentioned the cognitive dissonance of people in the industry. It's like DCG is not going under, but it's just that cognitive dissonance when you're dealing with the amount of money that DCG and Genesis is dealing with. The people that are giving them the money are savvy, wealthy people who, at the first sight of fuckery, are going to be pulling their funds. And like we mentioned, that $1 billion note that they were trying to raise on that scammy marketing of pulling the whole market down was not successful. And I find it hard to believe, with 30% headcount cut yesterday, shuttering that wealth management division, and then openly talking about Chapter 11 bankruptcy. I don't think anybody's going to come bail out DCG anytime soon. So,
well, technically they're not open. It's inside sources, rumors, whatever, on the Chapter 11 side.
And it's on the table. Yeah.
But I mean, like, anyone who's paying attention knows, of course, it's on the fucking table because they're insolvent. Like, fucking insane. Like, someone texted me, they're like, look at this. I'm like, are you fucking kidding? Like, obviously, it's been obvious for months now. Of course, they're contemplating everything. They're just trying to fucking save their fucking ass, and they're in a massive fucking hole.
Yeah, they're going to drag it out as long as possible, but I think the events of this week are probably alarm bells going off. Like, hey, this is the beginning of the end. We'll probably see an accelerated cadence of moves that they make. 'Cause they're probably forced to do it. They probably have no revenue coming in.
I mean, they still have the management fees from GBTC because that's also valued at NAV, not on the discount. So it's not like it goes down with the discount rate. And they have the management fees from all the shitcoin trusts as well.
Yeah, but can they funnel those into Genesis?
Yeah, I mean,
or is there a fiduciary responsibility to keep it siloed in grayscale because Genesis is obviously a failing business?
But it's not fucking siloed. They already commingled everything. I think DCG owns Genesis $1.6 billion. The whole thing is fucking commingled already, which is why it's hard to really see how it'll play out, because Barry's going to go for, the most greedy, selfish stalling process he can he's very savvy with this shit. And he's gonna draw it out for as long as fucking possible, just hoping that the Fed pivots or Bitcoin goes up or whatever saves him. So he will stall and make this go out for as long as possible. I mean, Marty, I think you said a really interesting point about Bitcoin companies. I mean, essentially, the companies that were humble, that were low time preference, that were thinking for the long term will benefit the most here. And I think it's 100% the same thing with individuals, right? We've seen a lot of paper Bitcoin out there. People thought they had Bitcoin, they didn't, including 340,000 Gemini users. A lot of paper Bitcoin out there. When this dust settles, the humble stackers, the people that are just stacking sats and constantly increasing their stack. I mean, including us, that we practice what we preach. I think when the dust clears, we're holding our own keys. We're actually holding real Bitcoin, not paper Bitcoin. Um, that's not priced in yet either. Like, people just do not realize how scarce actual Bitcoin is. Still to this day, we say it every fucking week for 4.5 years. People still do not realize how fucking scarce this shit is. So I think long term this could be extremely bullish for Bitcoin, that these entities that were reckless got actually wiped out during this cycle, rather than it getting like papered over and then barely surviving. And maybe some of that is thanks to our boy Jerome Powell. And if that's the case, thank you, Jerome,
Let's go Fed.
for absolutely destroying the capital markets and making it so they couldn't paper over it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. It's it feels good to know that I mean, for me personally, that I have my Bitcoin in cold storage, no paper Bitcoin, and this is all going on. And yeah, it sucks that the price is lower. You'd like it to be higher. There are better memes in the bull market when the price is ripping, but the sense of security that I have right now with all this chaos, this carnage, is a good thing to fall back on, and it does.
It's in the little handheld computer that we call hardware wallets. When you're signing a transaction, essentially what's happening is your internet connected computer is constructing that transaction. Your hardware wallet is then simply signing it on its device and then sending the fully signed thing, fully signed PSBT, the fully signed transaction, to your internet connected device to broadcast it. Your private keys are not leaving the device. That is the point of these hardware wallets. Now, some hardware wallets are better than others. They take different trade-offs. There's nuances there. But in general, probably if you were using one of the shittiest hardware wallets on the market and you generated your keys offline and stored the seed on steel, you were in a more secure situation than Luke. So I don't want to hear this bullshit about if a core dev can't do it, then nobody can do it. Using cold storage, using self-custody is more easy and accessible than it's ever been before. And no one's immune from overcomplicating their setup, shooting themselves in the foot, like Luke appears to have done.
Yes. Yeah, he was using that Linux implementation, running it on a server connected to the internet, and then it seems like he encrypted either a wallet.dat file or a text file with his private key on it with his PGP key, and that was the tweet he sent out. My PGP key has been compromised, so it looks like a motivated attacker, if we're to believe the story, which I tend to believe that this is what happened, realized that he was encrypting his private key with his PGP key, then went to figure out how to attack his PGP key and get access to that, to then unlock that file, get access to that private key, and move that Bitcoin. Which is, yeah, not ideal. Keep the stuff offline. Cold storage. Generate your private keys offline using a hardware wallet.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. And again, it is simple, but it comes with extreme responsibility. Make sure you secure that hardware wallet. Make sure you secure the seed phrase that backs it up. If people get physical access to that, it's going to be much harder to hack a Coldcard compared to a Trezor. But I mean, if they have lasers, it's not impossible. So just secure everything, the device and the backups. Make sure nobody can ever get access to it.
Yeah, think of the so if your device has a secure element like the Coldcard does, Coldcard has two secure elements. You can think of the hardware wallet as essentially a safe. It's a safe protected by the PIN. So if someone gets access to that hardware wallet, they need to compromise the hardware wallet in order to try and attempt to extract your seed. And the secure element limits the amount of tries they can do on the pin. So you want to have a secure pin on it. But of course, safes do get cracked sometimes, right? So it's nice to have a safe, but you also want to physically secure it. You don't want people to have access to it. To a lot of freaks here, I know a lot of you set up your Coldcard with my original Wasabi guide, with Wasabi 1.0. Obviously, a lot has changed since that original guide went up. Wasabi 2.0 doesn't have like solid hardware wallet support at all. So now my recommendation is Sparrow. I did put up a fresh, brand new guide with all this going on at werunbtc.com. And that goes through setting up your Coldcard, linking it to Sparrow, linking Sparrow to Bitcoin Core if you want to use it with your own node. So just be aware that that new fresh guide is up there. And also, Coldcard now has this new feature that they didn't have on that last when I had that original video guide, which is called Seed XOR. And I really like Seed XOR because Seed XOR is a very simple implementation that essentially creates two seed words, two sets of seed phrases. So you have your seed phrase, your secret backup words you don't want anyone to get. With Seed XOR, you can create two of them. And essentially, to recover that Bitcoin, you need both. So it's a very simple process that gives you a lot of the benefits that people see with multi-sig. So then you have essentially two sets of seed words. You keep them in separate places, and then ideally on steel because waterproof and fireproof. And then if someone wants to compromise you, they need to get both sets. They need to get both sets to compromise you, which is a really nice, easy one-up, improvement on just storing a regular plain seed phrase.
Yes. The tools exist, freaks. Use them. Yeah, it's a bummer. Feel bad for Luke. He's done a lot for Bitcoin.
Freaks, I see in the comments that you guys are experienced chop with our broadcast, maybe audio dropout, stuff like that. I know between me and Marty, the sound quality is great. So if it is frustrating for you, that sucks for you to leave our live stream.
It's
but just
a YouTube
know that
issue. Logan saying it's a YouTube issue. Refresh YouTube. Susan.
God is speaking.
Susan.
We have our Susan, our lady Susan. Twitch.tv/rabbit hole recap. Maybe check out the Twitch stream. Maybe that'll be better. But the podcast feed should be solid audio as well.
Yes, and apparently on Twitter, everything's all fine and dandy. So if you want to go over at Rabbit Hole Recap, it'll be live streaming there. Matt and I retweeted as well. If you just want to go to our profiles. Yeah, a lot has happened this week. First week of the year. A lot going on. Do we have anything to wrap it up with DCG? I think, like we said, there's many counterparties, Gemini the biggest, but this could be like another cascading effect where there's probably some Genesis counterparties who are white knuckling it right now are able to paper over what they have locked on Genesis for the time being, expecting or praying more likely that they'll get access to those funds. And if it becomes apparent that they're not going to get access to those funds, we may see some ripple effect there of people.
Yeah.
Of people having to be like, all right, we lost a lot of money.
There's definitely a bunch of insolvent entities that are just hiding under all the noise right now that are going to start to get exposed. These things take a little bit of time. We have on the list Silvergate Bank, which is a major banking partner of a lot of Bitcoin exchanges and Bitcoin companies. And they came out today, or yesterday they came out, and they explained after the fact that in the follow-up of FTX, they had an $8.1 billion bank run. So $8.1 billion was withdrawn. The percentage number of the amount of deposits that withdrawn was crazy. What was it, like 80% or something like that?
Something large, yeah.
And they were able to facilitate. They were actually running a relatively responsible operation there, and they were able to facilitate 80% or whatever of the deposits getting withdrawn. Which, by the way, 99% of banks in the world can't do that because they have no fucking reserves. Period. And they took a $700 million hit to do that because they had to sell debt that they were holding, which wiped out way more than their profits since 2013 or whenever they started operating. So they wiped out all of their profits from the existence of the business. But they were able to facilitate that. So props to them on being able to facilitate those withdrawals. But there's got to be a lot of other players that were not able to, right? And then we don't know about them yet. We didn't even, like, there was rumors about Silvergate. We've talked about it on the pod multiple times. But this was the first time they actually came out and actually said it to this degree. And, you know, we actually have Jason Brett at the park. I love that dude. I think he was like a former regulator, but he was showing me bank run videos from 2008. I was a little bit too young to remember. Do you remember IndyMac Bank, the bank run happening?
No.
So they have like videos of IndyMac Bank, which was taken over by the FDIC and was owned by the federal government. And at that point, the FDIC insurance was only $100,000. They raised it to $250,000, the insured amount for each account at a U.S. FDIC bank that the government will essentially print money to cover all that up and pay back depositors. FDIC took over IndyMac because they were failing, and there was this massive bank run. And
I got a clip. Pull it up, Logan.
Yeah, 1 second before you pull it up. And then following that, what FDIC did was, because they realized that essentially when it comes out that a bank gets taken over by the U.S. government, like that almost guarantees a bank run. That's why following that, what they did was they tried to set up situations where the smaller banks were getting bought by bigger banks, right? So like when Wachovia failed, it got taken over by Wells Fargo, and like the average person's like, oh, I trust Wells Fargo more than the U.S. government. Like my deposits are fine. I'm not going to withdraw. But the point is our banks have zero reserve requirements. They have no fucking money on deposit. If there is a fucking bank run in America during this recession, panic will ensue. There will be massive amounts of panic. And who's the only people that are actually holding their own money? Bitcoiners and gold bugs to a degree, right? And so all of a sudden you see that start to play out, and it can happen very quickly. It'll happen very gradually than suddenly, as our boy Parker likes to say, right? And that can get really messy really quick. Okay, roll the tape. This is crazy.
Fear, anger, and high anxiety were the prevailing emotions outside branches of the failed IndyMac Bank out in California. Bill Whitaker is in Encino, where it got ugly today.
We've been here since 4:30 in the morning. Have you?
Turn it down a little bit.
There was a far different mood outside IndyMac today.
Oh, Lord.
Yesterday's calm was today's anger.
Relax, you idiots. Let's not fight. Over there.
Bank employees who tried to ease the tension
The money is safe in an FDIC-owned institution.
only inflamed it.
Believe me, if it was safe, all these people won't be here. That gentleman doesn't know what he's talking about. Because
Armin Garden lost $31,000 when IndyMac stock tanked. He's not taking any chances with his deposits.
I don't have any confidence in them. They're not telling the people the truth.
Lack of confidence, the constant refrain.
Because I don't believe the bank.
Like all customers with deposits above the federally insured limit, $100,000, small businessman Don Hinojosa's account was frozen. He was hot.
I got mortgage payment due, car payments due. How am I going to make those payments?
Lisa Hester Lerner got in line when she found everything above the insured limit had disappeared from her online account.
I think it's mass hysteria. I think this is similar to what happened during the Great Depression, and everybody wants their money and they want to touch it and hold it and see it.
In the 11 business days before the FDIC takeover, frustrated depositors withdrew more than $1.3 billion from IndyMac. Another troubling sign, tumbling stock prices at other major banks. After meeting with bankers, Hester Lerner found out her uninsured money was in the bank but frozen. Her frustration level?
1 to 10, I'm at about an 11.
Customer Joan Rubin said what almost everyone else was thinking.
Well, we damn well do need to be here. This is our money.
The federal government says most of the 275,000 depositors, 98% of them, can trust that their money is safe. It's just that people here don't seem to be in a trusting mood. Katie?
Bill Whitaker. Bill, thanks very much.
People forget so quickly.
It wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago. And if it happens again, it's going to be... Because now we have, 2008, MySpace, Facebook, Twitter was even around, but they weren't the communication tools that they are today. Could you imagine how quickly panic would spread if the word was getting out via these avenues? Mandibles.
It's going to, I mean, I said this on Twitter. Look, Bitcoin tends to lead the macro environment. We've noticed this. We noticed this in 2020 when Bitcoin fell first, hard, fast. No circuit breakers. They couldn't turn off. They were turning off the stock market. They stopped trading, all this different stuff. And then Bitcoin recovered first before the stock market did. I think the bank runs we've seen in quote unquote crypto and Bitcoin, they're a leading indicator. We see the bank runs here in our Wild West, free market-esque situation, global financial market that is Bitcoin and crypto. The bank runs are going to be coming to the traditional banks. It will happen. There will be bail-ins. There will be, angry depositors that can't get their money, and it's going to be it'll be very sad. It'll be very sad to watch it happen. But like the crypto bank runs, like the Bitcoin bank runs we've seen, it will be the single biggest education experience on the value prop of self-custody Bitcoin that we've seen to date.
Yes. And like Matt said, I mean, the 0% reserve requirements were a product of the last in 2020 when they printed a bunch of money. They changed a bunch of the facilities, and they also went to the banks and said, okay, 0% reserve requirement. And it was already a paltry 10% before that. So you don't really have money in the bank. The only money that you do have is cash in hand or a Bitcoin UTXO in a public address that you control with a private key that you control, or if you hold a gold bar as well.
Yeah, I mean, cash in hand doesn't even really, because if when we hit this situation, like, how do you think the FDIC is going to cover the 250K deposits? Like that, they're going to print the fucking shit ton of money.
Yeah. So that cash in hand could be debased. You could have an India situation where they just say, hey, these denominations are no longer useful throughout the economy. They have many tricks up their sleeves. But going back to Silvergate, just to tie this knot here, like Matt said, they saw a bank run of $8.5 billion in deposits.
Insane.
They wrote, obviously, everybody saw, or if you saw the Silvergate headlines from yesterday, was basically a PR report that was being talked about by different media outlets. Somebody from Silvergate, Ben Reynolds, president of Silvergate, wrote a letter on LinkedIn to add some color. And I think there's an interesting stat here. Even as deposits have declined to approximately $3.8 billion as of December 31st, 2022, we currently maintain cash balances in excess of digital asset-related deposits. The commitment to maintaining a highly liquid balance sheet with minimal credit exposure and strong capital position will continue to ensure maximum flexibility for our customers, so they seem to have more assets and liabilities. Obviously, they've been getting attacked by short sellers like Mark Cahodes. Kathy Wood dumped 400,000 shares of Silvergate yesterday, I believe earlier this week. Their stock is down, I think, another 10% today. I was watching CNBC this morning. But who knows? Who knows what happens?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have to say it's impressive that they weathered so far, given everything. We'll see what happens. I mean, Silvergate's a major counterparty in the stablecoin game, as are the other banks, obviously, that act in the space. So, I mean, we've talked about this on the show, like many times. We have talked about it many times that stablecoins are inherently, not stable. First of all, they're pegged to a completely centrally controlled currency, and that is the dollar. But second of all, they are centrally controlled themselves. So you have rug pull risk. You have fraud risk, you have censorship risk. If we see during this cycle another major stable, I don't count Terra as like a major stable coin, but if we see like a USDC go down, I mean, Justin Tron's USDD is like, I don't know who the fuck would trust that. I don't trust any of the stable coins, but definitely not that. But if we see like a USDC have issues, that could be a crazy situation that once again, I think is bullish for self-custody Bitcoin on the long term. It will be a great learning experience. But yeah, there's a lot of things that can go bad here. A lot of things being hidden under the surface. And we talked about self-custody gold, by the way. I just wanted to bring this up because, so I was at my parents' house for Christmas, and my dad's not like a gold bug, but like he has gold coins, right? He has, a lot of people have some gold coins. We're like looking at the gold coins, and he's like, how much is this worth, right? And you have to like, it's so antiquated
You have to
compared
weigh
to Bitcoin. It's so antiquated. You like look up like, okay, like the Canadian Mint put this out, like this was the time. I guess like you could weigh it and then do like density measurements to see like how much actual gold is in it, like if you want to verify yourself. But then you have to find someone who's willing to buy it. And then what is the market price that they're going to pay for it? Because is the price paper gold is what's being traded on the things. It's so antiquated compared to Bitcoin. And I think people they still don't realize how much of an improvement Bitcoin is in terms of actually being used as a real money compared to gold and gold coins. And we're already seeing some gold coin fakes coming out of China. Like a lot of counterfeits. So you actually do need to verify it now. It's not like you can just like go to the local farmers market and start trading gold coins. So I think there's a disconnect there as well. And if we start to see like a mandibles type, really like panicky environment where the dollar goes through massive inflation, loss of confidence, I think what happens after that is like people start to realize that gold is not very helpful in that situation either. And maybe Bitcoin starts to shine more in that situation. I mean, I know personally, like if there was an easy way to just dump those gold coins for sats and just hold them in cold storage, like that's preferred to me. But once again, it's not my gold; it's his gold.
You should bully your dad into doing that, Mr. Odell. Come on. But yeah, every property, Bitcoin is far superior, scarcer, more divisible. You can send it over the internet. You can verify that it's actual Bitcoin.
Way easier to verify. You just literally just run a computer program.
Yeah. It's far superior. It's a far superior good. But tying it up.
The only thing it doesn't have is like you can't make jewelry out of it, right?
No.
Like my wedding band is 24 karat gold from Mene. Investment jewelry.
Same.
Quote unquote. That's like, and then always like the gold bugs always say like, oh, well, like gold has real utility value or whatever. Like you can use it for electronics and all these different things. Like that is such a tiny, negligible amount of the market price of gold that I don't want to hear that bullshit. That's complete. Bullshit.
And if you're using that as an attack on Bitcoin or you're trying to convince somebody why Bitcoin over gold, you agree and amplify. Yes, I agree that it can be used for that. Bitcoin is only used for money, and that's why it's far superior as money. It doesn't have people competing for it for these other use cases like jewelry or electronics. But to tie back to Silvergate, seems like, I mean, they're reporting that they have more assets and liabilities. I tend to believe them when they say that. It has been impressive that they've been able to weather the outflows that they have had to. 8.5 billion. It's not pocket change.
IndyMac was 1.3 billion in withdrawals that sent them into a bank run.
Yeah, for context, and that was in 2008. So
right, so it's like, but if you
it's
adjust
probably
for
like
inflation,
four,
it's like
it's probably
3 billion.
Yeah, 3 billion. But I mean, Silvergate's pretty integral to the space, particularly even so that, I mean, maybe this is where Bitcoin only companies could get affected. Silvergate is one of the very select few. There's less than a handful of banking institutions that will do business with prominent Bitcoin companies in the space, Silvergate being the biggest of them. And so if
you have Silvergate, Prime Trust,
Silicon Valley Bank.
And then the other thing is on the Genesis side. So Genesis had their loan side, but they also had a trading desk where it was just OTC trades. And a lot of Bitcoin only companies use them to source Bitcoin liquidity if you do buys or sells on. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're exposed as a counterparty. They just have to find someone else to get the liquidity. Like you might open Cash App and there's no Bitcoin to buy.
Yeah. That would be good for price. Yeah, so if you are one of those companies looking for other OTC providers, I think Cumberland is probably the creme de la creme. They've been around for a while, based out of Chicago. ItBit, which I think Paxos owns. I'm trying to think of others. Unchained, but they source it from other OTC desks, I believe. So yeah, be aware. Chaotic times. Carnage is not over. I'm sure everybody enjoyed your holiday season. Time to rest. Thinking, it was a chaotic year. It's probably going to be just as, if not more, chaotic. The rot has not been completely blown out of the space yet.
And to be clear, freaks, I'm not...
You doomer?
No, I mean, I would love to be wrong. You know, hopefully this is one of the predictions that we're wrong on.
Yes. I would like to be wrong on this one, but...
And if we're wrong, like, that'd be great. that would be really fucking great.
It would be, but all signs are pointing to us. Having been around the block a few times, been around a few cycles. But it is like, too, like, I don't want to say Barry deserves this, but you say, like, yeah, he exhibited a lot of hubris, wasn't humble. And we should probably...
Personal responsibility, man.
We should probably note that, I mean, Barry did lead the New York agreement and tried to change Bitcoin at the protocol level by just arbitrarily raising the block size limit and led a months-long campaign that led to the eventual fork war. And he has somewhat...
Which he lost.
He lost it, but he's also... His reputation is somehow... I mean, in the eyes of Bitcoiners, no, but in the overarching space, he has sort of gotten through that unscathed, relatively unscathed. Maybe this is a karmic retribution for trying to perturb the Bitcoin protocol.
Look, I mean, this is the beauty of Bitcoin becoming the standard, of fuck you money becoming the standard, because we can call out Barry and have called out Barry many times. On Twitter, even before Rabbit Hole Recap existed during the fork wars, with while knowing that, you know, he can't fuck us. But most people in this space are not willing to call him out, are not willing to be critical of him, even in this time of weakness, in this clear, obvious situation where he's insolvent, because he, you know, is you know, one of the most, or at least was one of the most powerful people in the space in terms of actually, if you needed capital, right? And I think, you know, I love that freaks are critical about 1031 and us, you know, being partners at 1031. But one of the reasons why when Grant and Jonathan approached us about building 1031, that I was willing and enthusiastic to do it, is because so many of the people that were providing capital to the space, Barry included, SBF, Multicoin Capital, who the fuck knows, you know, what's going, all these guys were at Forbes 30 under 30, except Barry, because he's too old. You know, they were misallocating capital. They were not getting it to Bitcoin companies. They were not getting to responsible projects, and they were holding it over everyone's heads so no one could call them out for it. So, I mean, it's really fantastic to see that capital markets in Bitcoin have distributed to a degree. You know, not only do we have 1031 that we're building, that is the, you know, the largest Bitcoin only fund in the space, but there's all these great smaller funds that have all popped up over the last few years. So now Bitcoin only companies can get capital while still telling Barry Silbert to go fuck himself, while still telling Multicoin Capital to go fuck themselves, right? And that's just beautiful. It's beautiful to see.
Yeah. Shout out to Stillmarks, TVPs, Hive Minds, Lightning Ventures, Folger Ventures, all those Bitcoiners who recognize the same problem that we did at 1031 and are trying to move the space forward responsibly and support people who aren't eating the marshmallow. That's what one of the lines I had in the newsletter yesterday was, I think the first 14 years of Bitcoin was a massive marshmallow test because of the proliferation of shitcoins and the easy money that came with them. A lot of the people in that space ate the marshmallow too early. They wanted the quick and fast and high returns that the shitcoin casinos provided. They took them. Some of them did. Some of them locked in the profits. Others weren't as lucky, but they may have gotten some profits in a quick and easy fashion, but they burnt their reputations in the process. And I think moving forward, the next decade and a half of Bitcoin, I think a lot of the people who took that marshmallow and ate it in the first 14 years are not going to want to be worked with. People are going to look at them and be like, I don't trust you. I'm going to go support these guys. And this is, I mean, you can pull up the tweet. I just put in the Slack now, but I mean, this is hearsay, I guess, it's an anecdotal data point, but this individual, Lee Drogan, is claiming to have had conversations with many prominent people in the crypto VC space, and apparently there's going to be a lot of trouble in the crypto VC space. It seems like the SEC and the DOJ are investigating a lot of these funds, and a lot of the LPs in some of these crypto funds are beginning to sue the founders of these funds for.
I think he's talking about Multicoin.
I would not be surprised.
Did you see Multicoin? They sold a bunch of their investments like at the top in 2021, but so their LPs have realized tax gains, but then they just rolled it all into Solana. That's down like 95% or whatever it's down.
Yes.
So they completely destroyed their investors.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the rumor is that the Multicoin founders sold their personal Solana stashes at the top
while they were buying it with they were pumping it. That was my that's what I've heard. I don't know if that's proven, but that they were selling their personal Solana while buying Solana with the fund.
Yeah. Which is an egregious affront to fiduciary responsibility.
Yeah, well, you know, Kyle Samani has had me blocked for 3.5 years.
He hasn't had me blocked yet.
Hopefully he has an alt account where he can read my Good Morning Stay Humble Stack Sats. It's good for him.
I mean, he's a perfect counter indicator. He was tweeting like Solana's going to triple digits. It's going to 10x from here at the Pico top.
I got to say, I love this situation where our back's up against the wall. Everyone thinks we're idiots, and there's just straight carnage. It is exhilarating.
It is exhilarating. You're able to enjoy the carnage when you stay humble and stack sats.
Exactly. Marty, I mean, I know you have a hard stop in like 20 minutes, so should we run through this list?
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten through a lot of it so far. Next thing we have up is Coinbase paying the New York government $50 million and implement stricter KYC. Yeah,
so the New York NYDFS and the New York Department of Financial Services, their hallmark regulation was the bit license years ago. They go after all these companies, even if they don't serve New York users. You know, they like to throw their dick around. Went after Coinbase for a KYC violation. I think particularly it was like there was some fraud that took place where Coinbase raised the limits and allowed someone to essentially funnel $150 million out of a corporate bank account and then buy Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency and then withdraw it. So there's $100 million fine that they were originally going to levy against them. Coinbase settled and is paying them $50 million and then taking the second $50 million and they're going to use it to implement stronger surveillance on their users.
Yeah, that's very, I get the $50 million fine, but how can you quantify like, oh, if we spend $50 million, it means we'll have good KYC now? Like, that's just odd to me. Why does it cost $50 million to do that?
I don't know. I mean, they have extremely strict KYC already. So
have you seen the new Coinbase commercials?
No.
Let me see if I can find it, but it's just like straight text. They were on during the Monday night game. But it's similar to the Gemini. Like, we're highly regulated. We reserve 1-to-1, like saying, come trust us. Let me see if I can find it.
While Marty's looking for that, I'll go to software updates. We had Electrum v4.3.3 released.
Look at this. Matt's reading the software updates. What a world.
We had Zeus v0.7.1 released. Before you update that, just keep in mind it will wipe, if you're on Android, it will wipe all of your node settings. So you'll have to reconfigure it with your node at home. Obviously, funds aren't at risk. They are on your Lightning node at home, but you're going to have to reconfigure it. So if you're out and about, don't update until you're able to easily connect it back to your node. That's because they've moved to a more secure storage system for Android. We have BDK v0.26.0. Big part of that release was better Fulcrum integration, which is a highly performant and efficient Electrum server implementation. Really great to see. And then this group of devs, I think it's a group of devs, but I might be pulling a Marty when saying like congratulations to the team at Sparrow, even though it's just Craig Raw. Straylight released a Whirlpool implementation that's fully tested, that works with that is fully written in Rust, which means Rust wallets, any wallets that are built in Rust can easily integrate the Whirlpool collaborative transaction implementation, the Whirlpool CoinJoin implementation. And that includes all BDK wallets. Bitcoin Dev Kit is essentially a Rust library that allows people to easily build Bitcoin wallets in Rust while the hard parts are already handled by BDK. So we might see many more wallets coming out that support Whirlpool, which would be fucking fantastic to see. And then last but not least, we have Nunchuck, which recently open sourced their stack, which was fantastic to see. They've added collaborative custody subscriptions with a focus on inheritance planning. They have 2 different subscriptions. You pay by the year. And what's interesting here with their setup is essentially you have a dedicated inheritance key, which is held on a Coinkite tap signer, which is essentially a hardware wallet that's built into just a single NFC card that you can tap on your phone. So essentially you give that inheritance key to your heirs, and then they don't allow that inheritance key to actually sign transactions on their side, on Nunchuck's side, unless a certain amount of time has passed. Essentially you die and then time passes and then that key becomes active. Really cool to see.
Yeah, I've been using Nunchuck a lot lately. Shout out to Hugo and team. I know it's a team of multiple people.
They fucking ship, man. They're just
really
constantly shipping. It's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, that's been my favorite Bitcoin demo of the last few months, is pulling out a tap signer and showing people like, hey, I have a single sig wallet, but I can only move the Bitcoin if I use my tap signer key. That's blown a few minds. And is Nunchuck's the only? Is it the only wallet that's NFC compatible right now?
I know the Hexa team just released their Keeper wallet, which has NFC compatibility. But yeah, I think Nunchuck is the first. Hopefully we see more and more added. I think Zeus has compatibility with NFC as well. But yeah, it's really interesting. The tap signer combo. See, the issue with tap signer, so trade-offs, right? Everything has trade-offs. The cool part about tap signer is it's an extremely cheap hardware wallet that's in a card form factor that you can easily just tap on your phone to sign. The main negative is it does not have a screen on it. So what we have told you many, many times is you should always verify receive addresses and change addresses on your actual device, on your cold storage device, on the Coldcard screen, right? You want to check what it's signing because your computer or your phone might be compromised. Now, so tap signer, you can't do that, but because tap signer is easily used in a multi-sig situation, you can verify it on other devices that are part of that multi-sig quorum. You can have different phones running different versions of Nunchuck that are able to, see the addresses on those different phones as well. So you can verify multiple sources before you sign on multi-sig. So tap signer is extremely useful in multi-sig environments where it's simply one key in a multi-sig threshold. If it's a 2 of 3 and only one key is a tap signer, you can verify on other devices without needing a screen on the actual tap signer itself.
Yeah. I'm raw dogging it with the single sig.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a strong argument that obviously if you're single sig on your phone, the tap signer doesn't add it doesn't reduce your security in that situation. It's strictly a net benefit.
Yeah, no, net benefit. Like, yeah, if you lose your phone in the cab.
Because like if you're just using Blue Wallet, right? You're just using Blue Wallet as a hot wallet. You don't have an external screen to verify that transaction anyway. And once again, by the way, when we talk about all these theoretical attacks and stuff, when you deposit into Coinbase or Gemini Earn, there's no way for you to verify that receive address either. It's just like a web screen pops up and shows, do they say deposit into this address? There's a theoretical attack there where that address can be a hacker's address and not the actual exchange deposit address. Or you go to our BTC Pay server and you buy a shout out. There's no verification that's happening there that's actually our address, and it's not like a hacker compromised our BTC Pay server and is giving you fake addresses. So there's nuances to all these things, and when it comes to long-term cold storage and long-term savings, you want to be on the a little bit more paranoid, a little bit more security side of the trade-off scale, because that's savings that is ideally going to your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. So you want to take security very, very seriously.
Yeah. So in the use case of like the Tap Signer or Blue Wallet, there's pocket change. And even with BTC Pay server, if you're receiving like we are at TFTC, maybe we're comfortable doing that for $50 shout outs. But if we were going to invoice for an ad deal, a multi-month ad deal, we'd probably want to send an address from the hardware wallet and confirm using that.
And even do out of band, right? Like you send them the address on email and Signal, and it's like, okay, both sides need to be compromised.
Yeah, maybe do like a video call too. Like, yeah, this is the address.
Right, a video call is nice because then you know it's the person.
Yeah. Beautiful things. Speaking of shout outs, second week in a row, no shout outs.
Do you have did you find the Coinbase ad?
I did. Logan, let's pull it up. Put it on full screen. Or just
for the last week, cryptocurrencies have been in a free fall, giving concern to investors
in the
around
world of crypto.
Is crypto going to zero? Is the dream over?
There's a lot of noise right now, a lot of talk. I'll read it for the people listening. But when it comes to crypto, it's not what you say, it's what you do. We built our company in the United States. We hold our customers' assets 1-to-1. We never trade against our customers. False. And we're a public company with regular audits and transparent accounting. So we'll just do what we've always done. Ignore the noise and keep building. Coinbase.
Wow, that ad's annoying.
I mean, they had like an overt lie. I mean, they have been prosecuted for trading against their customers. Is that a?
Well, they had individual. There was like individual employees that got hit with that, right?
Yeah, but I still want investigations since the Bcash launch.
Oh, 100%. And also, like, they just constantly list things that A16Z invested in and all their investors invested in, all the retail, all those tokens they want to dump on retail. A lot of Coinbase friends and family and Coinbase employees own those tokens and founders. I mean, Fred Ersham was one of the, he was co-founder with Brian Armstrong. And then he left Coinbase and then started Paradigm, which is one of the leading, one of these massive crypto VC funds that invested in all these different tokens that all got listed on Coinbase, coincidentally. Charlie Lee joined Coinbase and then Litecoin got added. Wow, what a coincidence, so.
Yeah. We built our company in the United States.
Yeah, it's an appeal to authority, right? It's the same crypto needs rules with a regulated crypto exchange.
Yeah.
It's fucked up.
It is. And they lied. I mean, they've been prosecuted for trading against their clients. I wonder if that's a SEC offense there.
So we have no shout outs, but should we read Boostagrams?
Yeah, let's read Boostagrams. Then we'll wrap up on Zoltan's latest piece.
And while Marty's pulling it up, also Fediment announced a hackathon.
Oh, yes.
They're giving over 2 Bitcoin worth of prizes if you build interesting projects on Fediment. So
2.1 Bitcoin.
That, no, 2.1 is the grand prize, but then there's also smaller prizes. So it's over. I think what's the total? The total is like 2.4 Bitcoin. There's smaller prizes. Let me see.
Yeah.
2.1 Bitcoin goes to the first place. Then second and third get 0.21 Bitcoin, 21 million sats. And then the next 3 get 2.1 million sats, so 0.021 Bitcoin. And there's a link in the show notes to that. That's fedi.xyz/fediment-hackathon.
Fractals of 21. Shout out to Fedi. Shout out to Fediment. To be clear, this is for Fediment, the open source Chaumian eCash protocol.
Yeah, but Fedi, the company, is paying it out.
Yes. All right. On to Boostagrams, since we don't have shout outs. At Bond, 50,101 sats. Great end of the year rip, guys. I can't believe it's already been 3 years, over 3 years, that I've been listening to RHR and TFTC. Quality all the way through. I personally like when Marty Jones comes out and find it a positive. Matt, for the great advice, always reminding us to stay humble and sack sats.
Great advice.
Thank you for continuing to do the show. I appreciate you both very, very much. Let's continue to grow value for value. And lastly, Happy New Year to you, your families, friends, and to all the freaks out there. Shout out to you, Bon. Thank you for listening. Thank you for contributing.
Thanks, freak. Appreciate you.
At Mav21, 50,000 sats. No message. Thank you, Mav21. Appreciate it. At Eric99, guess what this is? 50,000 sats. Stay humble, stack sats.
Great advice. Ride or die, freak. Appreciate you, Eric.
And then at Treebeard, 30,000 sats. He's quoting you, Odell. Stay humble and don't lose the plot of humanity. Long-term stacking for the future. Bitcoin or slavery. Spock piece. And then a shaka.
Love it. Appreciate you, freak. Great advice.
Remember when you were kids and you like try to do the Spock piece?
Yeah, I can't do that.
You can?
My lady can.
I couldn't do it for the longest time, and then you can't do the Spock thing yet. Try it. Try it on air.
No, I can't do it.
You can see my crooked pinky here. I broke my pinky punching the ground after throwing an interception in 8th grade.
I could maybe if I tape them together.
I mean, that would definitely work, but
yeah. And just hold it like that for a while, So yeah, I cannot do it. It's the ring finger. It refuses to chill with my pinky.
Interesting. This has been a hell of a rip. I wish we could go for an hour longer. I'm sorry I had to cut it short.
I like the tight rips.
Zoltan.
So so the Zoltan piece dropped. Well, it dropped before last RHR, but I didn't notice it until after we got off of RHR. To the freaks that aren't aware, I mean, we've talked about Zoltan before. He's an analyst at Credit Suisse. Obviously, Credit Suisse probably goes under this cycle. But I think Zoltan is just a great mind in spite of the fact that Credit Suisse pays him. This is just straight out of Mandibles, what he wrote about in this one. It's literally just, if you haven't read Mandibles yet, this is a spoiler. But essentially he talks about this idea of, in Mandibles, they called it a bancor, but this idea of a commodity-based money, as the dollar, as global trade starts to move away from the dollar, what kind of money will people trust? Will these nation states and entities trust for global trade? And a lot of people have speculated that it will be a commodity-backed currency. He doesn't say Bitcoin, but obviously if it's, Bitcoin is innately tied to energy markets because you have to expend verifiable work in the form of energy consumption in order to mine Bitcoin and earn Bitcoin that way. Any other commodity-based currency is going to have to rely on trust. And the real question to me is, in a post-truth world, in a post-trust world where trust is broken between institutions, entities, nation states, who the fuck is going to trust anybody to manage that commodity-backed currency? I think Bitcoin is far superior. I think people will try and make this commodity-backed currency a reality, particularly in China and Russia. But I think ultimately particularly for large trades, like people are going to prefer using something that's trust minimized and not controlled by anyone, like Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, like we discussed earlier, I mean, particularly with China, I mean, you mentioned it. There's a bunch of bunk gold coming out of China. And when you think about, I mean, there's so much complexity that comes into settling these trades in these commodities, particularly gold. Oil may be one as well. I don't know if we talked about it, but right around the World Cup, President Xi went to Riyadh. Is it Riyadh or Riyadh?
Saudi Arabia capital.
Yeah, he went to Saudi Arabia and basically discussed with the Saudis, like, hey, let's start doing these trades in yuan. So there's conversation. We've been talking about the oil wars for some time now. Russia and China particularly have been posturing like they want to transition away from the petrodollar system and settling their oil trades with Saudi Arabia in U.S. dollars. That has heated up. There's been more talk recently about the BRICS teaming up to do this commodity-backed currency. Obviously, Zoltan wrote his piece, but I think there was an official conversation between China and some of their counterparts about beginning to do yuan-settled trades and commodity-backed trades. But yeah, at the end of the day, you have to fact, like, how is this going to work? Or is gold going to be in a vault somewhere in a neutral place like Switzerland, and you do the trade, and the person at the vault just adjusts their ledger? Are they going to ask for physical delivery? And if so, and that comes with a bunch of cost, it comes with a bunch of time.
Remember when that Russian plane, just a bunch of gold fell out of it?
Yeah. Or when, like, what was it, the Bank of England refused to...
Venezuela's gold.
Yeah, refused to send Venezuela their gold. I mean, that's why Nixon ripped the U.S. off the gold standard in 1970s, because France and Germany began calling their gold en masse, and he had to rip the U.S. dollar off the gold standard to stop the
He's basically Barry Silbert.
Yeah. But yeah, when it comes to Bitcoin, I mean, Bitcoin is this apolitical, trust-minimized protocol for value transfer, final settlement that makes sense for these use cases. You don't have to trust anybody. You don't have to say the goal. You don't have to pay all the transfer cost. I mean, obviously, you have to pay transaction fees, but...
negligible.
Yeah, you don't have to load up a plane, pay for all that fuel, pay for all the security.
Verify the gold.
Yeah.
Verify the oil.
Yeah, Bitcoin.
Secure it properly.
Bitcoin just makes a ton more sense. And then even if you're not doing the physical transfer of the commodities, if it's gold, I mean, obviously if you're doing oil trades, you're going to want that physically delivered. But if you're in a situation where you're trusting a vault operator in Switzerland, you still have to trust that they're actually have the gold there, number one, and then are adjusting their ledger appropriately. So it's just very complex.
Yeah, Bitcoin was made for this. It's perfect for the situation, and people do not realize it yet, but they will. They will, and that's our advantage right now. While we're able to stack sats super cheap.
Yeah. So here we are.
By the way, Zoltan is going to speak at Bitcoin 2023.
Yes, he is.
I'm excited about.
Do you have his email address? We should get him on the podcast.
I would love to get him on the podcast.
We should do a tag team interview, Rip.
Okay, I'll set it up. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Zoltan. I won't do this when we're interviewing him. I'm sure he gets that a lot. For you freaks aren't aware what this is, there was a character in. It wasn't even a character. He was just like the god of this weird religion, Zoltan. Dude, where's my car? They don't make movies like that anymore.
Well, Zoltan was like the
cult leader, but I don't think he.
No,
was
but it was like, but there's like didn't they used to have like at festivals and stuff? They would have like the Zoltan prediction vending machine thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was in like Big when Tom Hanks asked.
I think Big was the first DVD I ever owned.
Really?
Yeah, because I watched it so many times as a kid because it was the only DVD I had. I had like one of those portable DVD players, and I just had Big.
What was the first DVD I owned? Might have been like The Green Mile.
I think I have that DVD too.
That's a great movie. It was a great movie. Was that a play on Of Mice and Men?
I don't know. Not in my wheelhouse.
I don't know either. I haven't seen it in so long. Whatever. This was a great rip. Starting the year off hot. It's going to be a good year, whether it's a bear market or not. We're going to be here week in and week out, staying true to what we've been saying for the last 4.5 years. Custody your own Bitcoin. Stay humble. Don't go out and margin trade your Bitcoin. Don't try and time the bottom. Don't try and predict where the price will go. Don't overextend yourself. Keep your fiat job. Obviously, it's going to be hard for a lot of people if we head into a recession. But if you do lose your job, develop skills, create multiple revenue streams, inoculate yourself, harden yourself, your family. We'll get through this.
Increase cash flow as much as possible. Decrease expenses as much as possible. Do it ASAP. Like Marty said, real skills. I joined a gun club recently. Fantastic.
Ooh.
I was there yesterday. Got a great crew on that front. Learn real skills that can help you through. Start thinking through these scenarios. Make sure, you can handle power outages, lack of clean water, very basic things that are easy to forget about. Marty's coming to Nashville next week. So we're going to have an in-person party rip on Wednesday of next week at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. So definitely join us for that. That'll be fun. And then after that will be the meetup, the mining meetup. So if you are in the Nashville area or like little 5-hour circumference and you want to jump in a car and join us for the mining meetup, you can go to bitcoinpark.co to RSVP to that. We would love to have you. And I love all you freaks. I think this year is going to be really big for all of us. And we will be here week in, week out, ride or die with you. So love you all. Stay humble, stack sets.
Peace of love, freaks. See you in Nashville next week, sir.